Well, good morning, Pilgrim. I'm here again, and I think everything's working here. I sure hope so. Uh, I'm in these sermons here. They're called farm sermons. They were given by Charles Spurgeon. And this particular one, Charlie's speaking about the broken fence. He read from Proverbs again, 24:30 to 32. I went by the field of the slothful, and by the vineyard of the man void of understanding, and lo, it was all grown over with thorns and nettles. Nettles had covered the face thereof, and the stone wall thereof was broken down. There's our subject, the stone wall. Then I saw, I considered it well. I looked upon it and received instruction. The broken fence is the title of the sermon. This slothful man, he did no hurt to his fellow men. He was not a thief, nor a ruffian, nor a meddler in anybody else's business. He did not trouble himself about other men's concerns, for he did not even attend to his own. It required too much exertion of him. He was not grossly vicious. He had not energy enough to care for that. He was one who liked to take things easily. He always let well enough alone. And for that matter, he let ill alone, too, as the nettles and the thistles in his garden plainly proved. What was the use of disturbing himself? It would be all the same 100 years hence, and so he took things just as they came. He was not a bad man, as some said of him, and yet perhaps it will be found at last that there is no worse man in the world than a man who is not good, for in some respects he is not good enough to be bad. He has not enough force of character about him to serve either God or Baal. He simply serves himself, worshiping his own ease, adoring his own comfort. Yet he always meant to be right. Yet, dear me, he was not going to sleep much longer. He would only have 40 winks more, and then he would be at his work again and show you what he could do. One of these days he meant to be thoroughly in earnest and make up for lost time. The time never actually came for him to begin, but it was always coming. He always meant to repent, but he went on in his sin. He meant to believe, but he died an unbeliever. He meant to be a Christian, but he lived without Christ. He halted between two opinions. He halted between two opinions because he could not trouble himself to make up his mind. And so he perished in his sin, always delaying. This picture of the slothful man in his garden and field, overgrown with nettles and weeds, represents many a man who has professed to be a Christian, many a man, but who has become slothful in the things of God. Spiritual life in him is withered. He's backslidden. He has come down from the condition of healthy spiritual energy into one of listlessness, indifference to the things of God. Well, things have gone wrong within his heart, and all sorts of mischiefs have come into him and grown up and seated themselves in him. Mischief is also taking place externally in his daily conduct. The stone wall which guarded his character is broken down, and he lies open to all kinds of evil to creep in. Upon this point we will now meditate. The stone wall thereof was broken down. Come then, let us take a walk with Solomon. Let us stand with him and consider and learn instruction while we look at this broken down fence. When we've examined it, let us consider the consequence of broken down walls. And then, in the last place, let us try to rouse up this sluggard. This wall may yet be repaired. If this slothful person should be one of ourselves, may God May God's infinite mercy rouse us up before this ruined wall has let in a herd of prowling vices, all kinds of bad, evil critters. First, let us take a look at this broken fence. You'll see that in the beginning it was a very, very good fence. It was a stone wall. Fields are often surrounded with wooden palings which soon decay, or with hedges which may very easily have gaps made in them. But this was a stone wall. Strong, sturdy stone wall. Such walls are very usual in the East and are also common in some of our own counties where stone is plentiful. It was a substantial protection to begin with, and well shut in a pretty little estate which had fallen into such bad hands. The man had a field for agricultural purposes, and another strip of land for a vineyard or a garden, and it was fertile soil, for it produced thorns and nettles in abundance. And where these flourish, better things can be produced. Yet the idler took no care of his property, but allowed the wall to get into bad repair and in many places to be broken down. Let me mention some of the stone walls that men permit to be broken down when they backslide. In many cases, sound principles were instilled in youth, but these get broken. They get forgotten. What a blessing is Christian education. Our parents, both by persuasion and example, taught many of us the things that are pure and honest and of good repute. We saw in their lives how to live. They also opened the Word of God before us and taught us the ways of right, both towards God, towards men. They prayed for us. And they prayed with us till the things of God were placed round about us and shut us in as with a stone wall. We've never been able to get rid of our early impressions, not completely. Even in times of wandering, before we knew the Lord's saving need, these things had a healthy power over us. We were checked when we would have done evil. We were assisted when we were struggling towards Christ. It's very sad when people permit these first principles to be shaken and to be removed like stones which fall from a boundary wall. Young persons begin at first to talk lightly of the old-fashioned ways of their parents. My parents were so old-fashioned. Sad. By and by, it's not merely the old-fashionedness of the ways, but the ways themselves that they despise. They seek other company, and from that other company they learn nothing but evil. They seek pleasure in places which it horrifies their parents to think of. This leads to worse and worse, and if they do not bring their gray hairs of their father with sorrow to the grave, it's no virtue of theirs. I've known young men who really were Christians. They were sadly backslide to being induced to modify, conceal, or alter those holy principles in which they were trained from their mother's knee. It's a great calamity when professedly converted men become unfixed, unstable, carried about with every wind of doctrine. It shows great faultiness of mind and unsoundness of heart when we can trifle with those grave and solemn truths which have been sanctified by a mother's tears and a father's earnest life. I am thy servant, said David, and a son of thy handmaid. He felt it to be a high honor, at the same time a sacred bond which bound him to God, and he was the son of one who could be called God's handmaid. Take care, you who have had Christian training, that you do not trifle with it. My son, keep thy father's commandment and forsake not the law of thy mother. Bind them continually upon thine heart and tie them about thy neck. Protection to character is also found in the fact that solid doctrines have been learned. This is a fine stone wall. Many among us have been taught the gospel of the grace of God, and they have learned it well, so that they are able to contend earnestly for the faith once delivered to the saints. Happy are they who have a religion that is grounded upon a clear knowledge of eternal virtues and verities. A religion which is all excitement and has little instruction in it may serve for transient use, but for permanent life purposes. There must be a knowledge of those great doctrines which are fundamental to the gospel system. I tremble when I hear a man's giving up one by one the vital principles of the gospel and boasting of his liberality. I hear him say, "These are my views." Yeah, but others have right to their views also. Now that's a very, very proper expression in reference to mere views. But we may not thus speak of truth itself as revealed by God. That is one and unalterable, and all are bound to receive it. It is not your view of truth, for that is a dim thing, but the very truth itself which will save you if your faith embraces it. I will readily yield my way of stating a doctrine, but not the doctrine itself. One man may put it in this way and one in another, but the truth itself must never be given up. The spirit of the broad school, the worldly school, robs us of everything like certainty. I should like to ask some great men of that order whether they believe that anything is taught in the Scriptures which it would be worthwhile for a person to die for, and whether the martyrs were not great fools for laying down their lives for mere opinions which might be right or might be wrong. This broad churchism, this worldly churchism is a breaking down of stone walls. And it'll let in the devil and all his crew, all his minions, all his many minions, and do infinite harm to the church of God, and it is doing it. If it be not stopped, and it hasn't been stopped, a loose state of belief does great damage to any man's mind as well as his fence. We're not bigots, but we should be none the worse if we so lived that men called us so. I met a man the other day who was accused of bigotry, and I said, "Give me your hand, old fella. I like to meet with bigots now and then, for the fine old creatures are getting scarce, and the stuff they are made of is so good that if there were more of it, we might see a few men among us again, and fewer mollusks." Yeah, lately we have been seeing few, far, far, so few with men with backbones. The most have been of the jellyfish sort. I have lived in times in which I should have said, "Be liberal, shake off all narrowness," but now I am obliged to alter my tone, and I'll cry now, "Be steadfast in the truth." The faith once delivered to the saints is now all the more attractive to me because it is called narrow. For I'm weary of that breadth, that broad way which comes of broken hedges. There are fixed points of truth and definite certainties of creed. And woe to you if you allow those stone walls to crumble down, pilgrim. I fear that the slothful are a numerous lot today. And that ages to come will come to deplore the laxity which has been applauded by the negligent generation. Oh, look around us, pilgrim. Talk about negligent generations. Talk about deplorable. That was used in the politics in the last election, the deplorables. Who are the deplorables? Well, they're certainly not the Christians. The deplorables are certainly not the Christians. I believe the deplorables are the ones who cry, "Deplorable!" Yeah, they accuse us, the Christians, of being deplorable. Can you imagine? Take a look at their fences, their stone walls. They're all full of holes, crumbled down. Protect them from Satan? Never. Well, I'm going to leave it here. Tomorrow we'll take this up some more. God bless, pilgrim. Have a blessed, blessed, blessed day.